for lunch? Good news is I'm right between you and lunch, so. Very nice to see some of you again and meet some of the others. I'm Leah Kunzer. I head up our developer ecosystem team at Qualcomm, so we're responsible for going out and working with developers across all mobile application platforms globally to help them build kind of the next generation of user experiences and really cool apps that take advantage of the power of Snapdragon. So, what do we want to talk about today? You guys have had some fascinating discussions about benchmarks so far. And I think it's hopefully clear that the Snapdragon hardware is good. Technical term. Quote me on that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about benchmarks and specs and feeds and speeds or any of that. The reason I don't really like to talk about that is because the people in this room totally get it. You guys really understand it. You guys write about it. You do a fantastic job. But my mom doesn't understand it. My dad doesn't understand it. Most people I hang out with don't understand it. So instead, I think what we want to talk about today is user experiences. The stuff that people do with their phone every day. I think what we're noticing at Qualcomm is that experiences are selling devices more so than just hardware specs like in the past. You're not seeing as many advertisers doing TV campaigns or print campaigns or even signs off the side of the road campaigns where they talk about the gigahertz or the GPU performance. But you are seeing a lot of people talking about what you can do with your camera or what you can do with some of the new applications or what movies are streaming. And that's kind of what drives the ecosystem team. So what do we see as the future of mobile experiences? I thought I'd start with this and just kind of at least set a tone for what I think are really interesting experiences of the future. So we go out and talk to application developers around the world. We talk to application developers that are doing things for very high-end phones, for tablets, for TVs, as well as folks that are doing apps for lower-end phones for China, India, Brazil. And quite frankly, there's a couple of common denominators that I'm seeing that are popping up again and again. I thought I'd talk about them a little bit. So number one is more proximal communications and multi-screen experiences. What do I mean by that? Peer-to-peer when you're close to one another. I think this is really blowing up in 2012. My opinion is this is kind of the revolution of communications for 2012. There's not a major guy in the industry, whether it's Apple or Google or Microsoft or Qualcomm, who hasn't shown in one of their keynotes some type of multi-screen experience or peer-to-peer. Everyone is doing it. The way that you interact with your TV, the way that you discover people around you, it's changing. And we're very, very early in that sea change. A lot of people are talking about this, particularly folks that are driving media. Augmented reality is becoming the norm. So I think until now, augmented reality has been around for a while. You guys are definitely aware of it. But it's kind of been a novelty. I think it's really becoming the norm. It's not going to be weird to be in a grocery store and see a mom hold up her phone and get more information about a cereal box. I think that's coming. Contextually aware apps, so apps that are smarter because they're more aware of what's happening and what you're doing. More real-time, complex computer vision applications. Navigation and location, moving indoor. And home theater-like audio experiences on your mobile devices. And of course, richer gaming, which we talked about a lot in the graphics section. So what is Qualcomm doing about this trend? To help developers? Well, we've really been quite active, and I expect that we're going to continue to be more active. Historically, Qualcomm hasn't done that much with the application developers outside of the Brew context. Most of our folks are really, really entrenched with all of the OEMs around the world and carriers around the world. But a few years ago, we said, look, we really need to start working with the application developers. There's a ton of stuff happening there. If they can really learn how to take advantage of our hardware, that'll open up a whole new set of experiences. And that's kind of what set us off. So we have things like Vuforia AR SDK, we have AllJoyn SDK, we have Fluence, we have FastCV SDK, and we have our Snapdragon SDK. So these are all various components that we're bringing to developers for the first time. So let's talk about AllJoyn first. Hopefully this is not new. I think most of you guys have heard this before, but I think it's important to kind of see what's been happening over the past year around AllJoyn, and there's some demos in the other room where we'll show you a little bit more. But this has really taken off. So about a year ago, we released the AllJoyn SDK, and we started talking to developers about what can you do if your devices or your applications can recognize each other when you're in proximity. Isn't it ridiculous that here we are, it's 2012, we're at the W or in San Francisco of all places, and my device can't discover all of your guys' devices. We're in the same room, most of us are on the same Wi-Fi access point. Why is that? It's not because technically it's not feasible. I mean, Wi-Fi's been around for a long time. Wi-Fi Direct is here in 2012. Like, why is it not happening? The reason that it's not happening is not because there's a problem with the fundamental architecture or radios. It's all there. It's not happening because the guys who are building those really cool user experiences, the guys who are building these applications that allow us to like share business cards or share music or share pictures or play games against each other or control the TV screen that's over there. Those guys are not Wi-Fi experts. They're not Bluetooth protocol experts. And for them to figure out how to do things such as discovery and pairing and security and dealing with really dynamic networks where if I leave to take a break right now, the whole thing doesn't fall apart, it's not their bag. And it's actually really hard to do that kind of stuff. I mean, think of how hard it was when we first even just did Bluetooth pairing with your car. Now we want to open this up to hundreds of thousands of developers to do this type of thing. So AllJoyn is simply a software framework SDK that we provide developers. They can pull it into their applications. And in less than a week, we've seen app developers add peer-to-peer communications to their experiences, which is amazing. Some of those examples are, of course, gaming and entertainment. We've seen really interesting stuff happening in the multi-screen space. So a lot of times, I think you guys are seeing things with Wi-Fi display where it's really about mirroring what's on your phone or your tablet to your TV. AllJoyn cracks it open way beyond that. So you have a lot of application developers that are building apps that can run, let's say, on an Android TV and talk to all the various devices that are in the room. And because AllJoyn works across OSs, it can talk to an Android device, can talk to a Linux PC, can talk to an x87, Windows PC, can talk to iOS by the end of the year, can talk to Windows 8 by the end of the year. So the whole idea here is that devices can talk to one another regardless of the OEM and regardless of the OS. It's really brand new territory. Most of the stuff that you're seeing today comes from OEMs or from OS partners that want to control it in a vertical. And of course, there's lots of social experiences that become real when you can discover who's next to you at any given time. I think a lot of stuff is being unleashed. Vuforia. So we've been talking about Vuforia for several years. I think what's really interesting about Vuforia as of late is just how it's gone so much from being kind of a cool demonstration type of thing where you see some games and you think to yourself, well, how many people are going to play games holding up the phone for that long, to real world solutions that are solving real world problems that my mom could understand. So it's not just about gaming and play, it's also about advertising and media. It's about being able to put your phone up at the point of sale and learn more information about what it is that you're buying. Is it available in different colors? Is it available online in different sizes, even though it's not available here at the store? Being able to put up your phone to real world things and get more instructional information. So I got a brand new DVD player. I want to set it up to my home theater system. I don't need to go read this book of 200 pages that I never end up reading. I can actually just put my phone up to the DVD player and see the buttons tell me, okay, now push this to set it up, now push this to, and it's really kind of live instruction. So augmented reality becoming much more real. And I think we have a fun little video. Not as cool as benchmarks. So what you really are seeing there is, yeah, we work very, very hard at the lowest levels to optimize every block inside a Snapdragon chip. And that's why the teams that own these blocks, whether it's GPU or CPU or DSP or the Bluetooth team or the Wi-Fi team or the 3G team or the LTE team, when they talk to, they're really proud about, you know, the performance of benchmarks and what they've done at a system level. But at the end of the day, what matters is how are developers actually taking advantage of all that optimization? How are developers really taking advantage of the extra features and capabilities that are in the chip, and what's coming out of that? So to that end, that brings us to FastCV. So FastCV is another SDK that we've actually released fairly recently to the developer community, and it's all about computer vision. So what we're noticing is that there's a big trend of developers building applications that are doing quite complex and sophisticated computing real time on the phone. It's like every time there's another smartphone that comes out there that has more processing power, these guys are trying to find what application can suck up all that processing power. And that's kind of what's driving, I think, the FastCV trend. So AR is one example that really leverages this, where in real time your camera is tracking something and it has to analyze what it's tracking and it has to do something in return. But there's also other things that might not be as obvious to you guys. Here's just a couple of examples of developers we've worked with who used FastCV to show significant improvements in the performance, so it's not all running just in software on Android. So TVTac is a company that actually builds an application that you put up to your TV, and unlike Shazam and some of the other things that are doing it with audio, sending the audio back to the cloud, analyzing it, and coming back and telling you what it is that you're listening to, these guys are actually doing it with imaging. So in real-time imaging, they're analyzing what they see on the television screen, and within 1 or 2 seconds, they're able to come back actually and tell you what you're seeing, and sometimes have an interactive engagement with it. IonRoad is an application that you actually put on your dashboard when you're driving. The camera is looking out ahead of you and telling you if you're getting too close to the car in front of you, telling you if you're starting to swerve lanes. Real-time computer vision, really, really intensive on the CPU. These guys are examples of developers who came to us and said, look, we're running these apps, the performance is pretty good, but it's really sucking up the performance on the phone. I mean, it's just taking up everything the phone has. What can we do to help us? And we offer them FastCV in very little time, in some as short as a few days actually. They were able to turn around a version of their application and see significant performance improvements. I think I have a little video on that.
Platform that basically makes TV interactive by letting users point their phone or their tablet at a video and then start interacting with it by recognizing it in a second. When we came to developing our Android application, we hopped onto the FastCV, which made our processing of the images and of our fingerprints much faster. In terms of processing time, we observed that we were able to process between 2 to 10 times more frames for the FastCV than without it.
Being able to identify the right content since you're getting a better frame per second is really exciting. I think the entire integration process didn't take less than a 5 days period. I just download everything from the site and just replace your calls with FastCV calls, and that's it, you're done.
Computer vision is this broad class of applications that use the camera as an input sensor. FastCV is looking to accelerate a large number of use cases and applications, from facial recognition, optical character recognition, augmented reality, gesture recognition, depth estimation for stereo camera hardware. There's a large number of potential uses for this library. We recognize that there are similar functions available in this broad library called OpenCV, but we wanted to write efficient, mobile-specific versions of those functions. Pick It Up is an application developer that has developed the Eye on Road application. You install it on your mobile device, and what the application does is it actually uses the camera on your mobile device to do a distance estimation of how close your car is to the car in front of you. It's actually a pretty cool application that runs in real time. It's very processor intense, and on different devices it would run sometimes not fast enough. The Eye on Road development team was able to take our FastCV binary that they were able to download from the Qualcomm Developer Network website and include specific function calls that improved their application by 30% within 2 days of development. It was really quite striking. FastCV has 2 implementations. There's FastCV for ARM and there's FastCV for Snapdragon. FastCV for Snapdragon just provides additional benefit for people that are running on Qualcomm hardware. A talented engineering team can take our library and see real performance improvements in extremely short development time.
I figured the videos would wake you up a little bit before lunch. Let's hit one more time. Okay, so another thing that we're bringing up to developers for the first time is some of our facial processing capabilities. So you might have heard the announcement of Snapdragon SDK. We announced it at Uplink. One of the things that Snapdragon SDK exposes is facial processing. Facial processing is not just face detect, like you're used to seeing in a lot of applications. Qualcomm actually has quite sophisticated algorithms that are doing things like measuring to what extent is your eyes open or closed, what direction are your eyes looking, what is the degree of smile or frown on your face, what could you as developers do if you had that? It's actually pretty amazing to see some of the stuff that developers are talking to us about right now using this. So one example, and I think we have it in the demo room, is a camera application that is basically kind of like helps you take the perfect picture every time. If you guys have ever had family portraits where you have a bunch of people lined up, always one person is looking away, or one person is blinking, or one person is not smiling. So in this application, you can actually set it up. You can set it up however you want, but you can make it so that only when everyone is looking at the camera and everyone is smiling, the phone will automatically take that picture. You don't have to do anything. It just automatically does it right at the right time. If one person's not smiling or one person's looking away, it'll just wait. We've also talked to some other application developers who are thinking about doing some really cool stuff kind of in video chat applications. You can imagine what might you do if you had this power within your video chat. And at Uplink, we actually had a hackathon where we gave developers for the first time visibility into some of these features. And the $20,000 winner of the overall hackathon, out of over 200 developers that showed up, was someone who took these features and built at least a prototype of an application where it's an early detection for autism. Again, I mean, this is the type of stuff that's going to happen when you expose it to developers, stuff that none of us would have ever thought about. But the application basically does a bunch of videos and patterns on the screen, and a child looks at that, and then based on how the child is responding to what they see on the screen, the application kind of runs through algorithms and gives feedback. So pretty amazing stuff, and we expect a lot more amazing stuff to come. Another thing that's exposed through Snapdragon SDK is what we call Fluence. Fluence is an audio technology that's in Snapdragon. It's been around for a while. Our OEMs have access to this stuff, and a lot of the phones that you guys use today already leverage the power of Fluence, which is kind of advanced echo cancellation, noise suppression, all those things. But developers have never had access to this stuff. This is really kind of the new world, is how can we get the power of Snapdragon exposed to developers? What will they do? So for the first time, developers are going to be able to do things that can really help everything from voice recognition applications to speakerphone applications to one of the things that I think is really interesting, which is stereo 5.1 surround. Do you guys like to listen to movies in your home with your 5.1 surround system like I do? Now for the first time you can actually record your own movies using your phone and record in 5.1, and when you play that movie back, let's say on a home theater, you will enjoy 5.1 surround. You'll be able to hear what direction a car is coming from, or where the drums are happening. It's pretty cool. So Snapdragon SDK is kind of the fundamental SDK where we're exposing a lot of these new Snapdragon specific features. Some of the questions that I often get from bloggers is, you know, is this fragmenting? Is this causing problems for developers? And I think it's really important for you guys to understand that we spend a lot of time thinking about how to architect this to purely extend Android, not fragment Android, and make it as easy as possible for developers to take advantage of these features so that they don't have to build separate apps. We spend a lot of time thinking about that and architecting it that way. So the way that developers basically would use this is within the code, you simply check to see, is this functionality available on this device? If it is, then you can add these extra capabilities that could surprise and delight the end user and do all these magical things. If it's not, the application will fall back to what it's doing today. And that's kind of really the architecture. And of course, advanced gaming. No discussion on user experiences can be without this. I think you guys have already talked a lot about what we're doing in the graphics realm around gaming, but here's a little bit of visualization so you can see what it means to have advanced lighting and rich geometry for characters, what the advanced particle systems for smoke effects could look like. So the teams are really working closely with game developers to take advantage of Adreno. And Snapdragon Game Command, which many of you have written about, continues to be a very well-received way for anyone who's really optimized their games for Snapdragon to be discovered, and users seem to be really liking this. So, a couple of things that I kind of want to conclude on. Number one is we do a lot in hardware, we do a lot in software. We recognize that, you know, optimal user experience has to be in the tight integration of those two things. And we're also doing a lot with the developer community so that the guys that are building the really sexy apps that you and I use every day can take advantage of all the capabilities of Snapdragon. Snapdragon developer program and the portal from which all developers work with Qualcomm is developer.qualcomm.com, also known as QDevNet. This is really the central foundation. If you want to know anything about any of our SDKs, you want to access the SDKs, you want to get technical forum support, access to hardware, blogs, documentation, videos, everything is in QDevNet. That's really kind of the hub of all things for developers. And we expect to continue to grow this as we release more features for developers. Lunch? Happy to take questions. Come on, are you kidding me?
My question would be,
There we go.
how do you, and it's the same with the benchmarks, I mean, how do you convince the developers to use your stuff versus other people's stuff? Because it's not just Snapdragon out there, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's TI and there's Tegra and stuff. So that's kind of, I mean, as an ex-developer, that's the first question that comes out. And with the benchmarks, how do you convince people that, you know, we kind of touched on it earlier about open sourcing things. How do you convince people that, you know, they should use benchmarks from a company that makes processors?
So let me answer the first one, because that's something that's near and dear to my heart, because it's kind of what I do. So 2 years ago, or about 2.5, 3 years ago when we started this, and we went out and talked to developers and said, hey guys, we're Qualcomm, we have these chips, and we want you to take advantage of them and build your apps, and that was pretty much exactly what everyone said. First of all, they said, who? I'm like, Qualcomm. And then they said, but I'm an Android developer, or I'm an iOS developer, or I'm a Windows developer. Like, why do I care about the hardware? I'm just writing to a platform. And we would talk to them about the importance of hardware-software integration and that you could really improve your performance if you offload. Anyways, fast forward 2.5, 3 years, 180-degree shift. It is completely a different world. Developers are coming out of the woodwork and coming to talk to us and they all have recognized that importance of hardware-software type integration. So folks that are doing streaming video recognize that if you use dedicated hardware blocks instead of running everything in software codecs, you not only get significant performance difference in frame rates, but you actually also get power savings. Guys that are doing things like trying to get high-quality Hollywood content delivered to phones recognize that the Hollywood studios are saying, no way in hell am I going to let you have higher quality with the security level that exists in most of these smartphones. But if you work closer down to the metal and you get higher level type integration of security, which is why Qualcomm has also released Studio Access, you can get delivered higher quality content. We have game developers that are obviously coming and wanting to take advantage more of the GPU, and we have other developers that are coming to us and wanting to differentiate their applications, because there's already a sea of 600, 700, 800,000 app developers out there. How can they stand apart? How can they get discovered? And they want to get onto that like leading edge of what's coming up next in mobile. What are the things that the hardware guys are bringing to mobile that no one yet has seen? And so they want to do the things like multi-screen experiences and peer-to-peer AR. So there's a lot of that. In fact, I think there's been a ton of press today or yesterday about the deal we cut with Box. There's also deals that we're cutting with various application developers who are recognizing that the reach of Qualcomm in the market really helps with distribution. So when you ask me the question, why should a developer work with you guys? I mean, there's other hardware guys too, and they're all asking the same thing. I think it's a really fair question. But at the end of the day, every single developer that we meet with, it comes down to a very simple equation, ROI. They're going to do this extra work to optimize the hardware platform. Where are they going to get the best ROI? Well, a lot of our competitors make a lot of fuss when one device hits the market. 2 devices hit the market. A tablet hits the market. Qualcomm has over 400 Snapdragon devices out there. Almost 400, but over 400 that are still in the pipeline. So, you know, if you're a developer and you need to do the math, it's pretty simple. And so I think that helps. And I think the fact that we're trying to offer some tools that can hopefully extend what they can do also helps.
No, I see that. I'm just more about what can you do for those people who are primarily targeting Snapdragon, but also targeting other things, and just kind of want one turnkey solution.
So most of the efforts of my team is all around not asking developers to fragment or do something separate. So if you're doing something with us, I don't want you to not be able to leverage that across 100% of the phones out there. So even all the things that we're showing you on Snapdragon SDK, which are capabilities only available on Snapdragon, we're still doing it with developers with sample code in such a way that whatever they do that takes advantage of these features, that same APK could run anywhere. It might not do those extra kick-ass things, but the same APK can run anywhere. So we spent a lot of time on that. The flip side of that, and this is kind of funny because if you're going to think about 2005 in the world of developers and then how that broke apart with iOS, it's almost like it went backwards a little bit now, but the flip side of that is there are a lot of developers who actually want preload opportunities because it's so hard to get discovered. And so they are willing to go do something and create exclusivity deals with the OEMs that Qualcomm has around the world. And as a result of that, you know, it might be time exclusivity, but they're getting a ton of eyeballs that otherwise they may never have gotten if they were just in the App Store. So there's a lot of different variants, and we're pretty flexible.
So you guys, all through your presentations, have pretty frequently used augmented reality and high-end gaming as examples of things that show off the chipsets. And now you guys and John Petty asserted your faith in augmented reality becoming a major use for mobile devices in the future. But as regards gaming, in the first presentation, John Petty pretty much kind of belittled high-end gaming on mobile devices. He said only 20% of people do it. You know, it isn't something we should necessarily focus on in benchmarks. Do you see, and does Qualcomm see high-end gaming or gaming that really uses the platform as a growth area? Is that 20% going to ramp up, where John's research showed that it actually had been ramping down in the past couple of years?
So I don't want to make any announcements on whether, or estimates on whether high-end gaming is going to go up or down, but I'll make a couple of comments to that. Number one is Qualcomm is not just in phones. Snapdragon is not just in phones. We're in phones, we're in tablets, we're coming into TVs, and when you start to look at all of the devices that we're in, it's just really starting to be kind of a question of screens. The user experiences and the demands of what consumers want are going to vary. So if you believe that perhaps the future of TVs and the future of game consoles and the future of set-top boxes are to have all of those rich, high-end games that you're used to, guess what? I mean, that's Snapdragon ecosystem type stuff. So I think that's absolutely going to continue. I think it's going to grow in new ways. I think we're very, very, very early in what's happening in that space. Second comment to your question, I don't think it's all about AR and gaming at all. I think those are definitely two important things that are going to continue in our industry, and we need to make sure that we facilitate those app developers and enable them. But there's a ton other stuff that we're focusing on.
Yeah, that's why I didn't mention that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you about the other stuff.
Yeah.
So for your developers, and this is a follow-up to what Miriam was talking about, so for your developers, what exactly does it entail for them to integrate some of these technologies? What kind of resources are we talking about? What kind of things are we talking about them having to do in QA to try to make them work? And then also make sure that it's not interrupting in QA the fact that it, when they take that same application and put it on a non-Qualcomm device, how it's going to work. What are the resources we're talking about here?
It's a great question. So let's use really specific examples, because I think that's the best way to really understand things. So we've had developers work with us who already have commercial games that are out in the market. In 1 week, they've downloaded, for example, the AllJoyn SDK, and they've integrated the AllJoyn SDK into their existing games, and then they're able to re-release the application with all of these new capabilities, such as discovering people next to you and doing head-on, one-to-one racing and gaming that easily, without even asking us questions. I mean, actually that surprised me that they didn't need more technical support, but it seems to be quite seamless. Other examples, we have sample code that's up on QDevNet for developers that are doing video-rich things, whether it's video streaming or video chat. App developers who are recognizing that power consumption is a really big deal, who want to offload software onto dedicated hardware, they're just going out there and leveraging some of those sample codes and really improving the performance of their devices. And by the way, they're not doing this as a separate APK just for Qualcomm. It's the standard APK, it runs everywhere, it runs across all Android devices. FastCV, so a lot of these guys that are building complex, real-time, rich computer vision applications, in as little as 5 days, pulled down FastCV, pulled the libraries into the application that they already have, and saw tremendous results. So it's free. Some of our stuff is even open sourced. The SDKs are all available. We don't charge for any of this stuff. And our business goal is really simple. We want all apps to run best on Snapdragon. And we want to have our OEMs sell more devices because they have the best, the richest, the coolest, the most leading edge experiences. That's really what we focus on.
And a ballpark of how many apps are optimized for Snapdragon today?
Hundreds and hundreds. Yeah, games and apps and hundreds.
And how does one find those?
So one way to find them is actually on Game Command. So that's
for games, but are they only games that we're talking about?
no, but we don't have a centralized place for all the other ones yet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Leah. Really